All right, so bar potentially bent, cutting at an angle. Here's a bar. It's got some wear on it for sure. A couple of things going on here. I think one of the primary things was this chain, and I should have gave you a before on this, but I went ahead and put a fresh grind on this. We had one side of the teeth that were pretty heavily damaged, which would account for it pulling in one direction. The other thing is this bar. Now I've already trued up the rails on it, but here is the amount of, let me back out a little bit. Yeah, maybe if I get in there. Look at all that metal. And that was just to get both sides down nice and even. This is a nice little handy tool right here. Preferred, P-Ferd, whatever y'all call it, makes these. Eventually these files wear out, but it's a one directional thing. Just clamp it in the vise and you run along. The cool thing about these, as opposed to try to hand file the rails back straight, is that this has got a guide on it. Here, let me set you down for a sec. Okay, so you got a one directional file. All right, my teeth will be going that way, and you just lay it on there, and you want to push down just a little bit, but more like pull into it. So that way when it runs across, you're actually getting a nice 90-degree angle right there. And you have to keep going until you see shiny metal on both sides. As I was grinding this side right here was still dirty. So I just kept filing and filing and filing until these actually leveled out. I did check the depth and we're still good. The bar was tweaked just a tiny bit, but not enough to make any difference. So those are some things you want to look at for your saw not cutting straight. But this would have been the biggest factor, and the goobered up bar doesn't help either. If you've got one side that's still nice and sharp and then the other side that's damaged, now this has been cleaned up, you'll actually cut this way, because these cutters are doing more work than these. These are dull, so this side of the kerf isn't being cut, but this side of the kerf is, so that's why it pulls. You know, and then just other things, you know, keep an eye on this. Chain brake has not been functioning for a while. If you look at that, it didn't just happen. Safety feature, okay? I mean, that's important. These are like 10 bucks. Definitely a good idea. I'm probably gonna put another one on here. This one was bent down a good bit, but it's got some gashes in it, and it may or may not hold the next time it throws the chain. So just little safety things to keep in mind. Y'all have a good day. Not so fast. So there's your worm gear, okay? And they call this a spring, more like kind of an arm. And the tip of that catches the groove in the clutch drum. There's that one little slot right there that it rides in. And I did notice that the chain was a little bit on the dry side. Didn't look like it was oiling very well. And it was more, take you out and let you look at that. See how it's shiny right there? That's not really supposed to make contact. But I think when this snapped off, you can look at these side by side and see that this top piece of material is worn off. Sometimes when you look at these, when they're just starting to wear out, you know, this contact area is only like the top little tiny bit, and you'll see that nub right there. It'll actually be smaller and smaller until, well, it's gone. They do sell just the quote-unquote spring, but once this becomes discolored, this nylon gear right here, there's two things you want to check for. Make sure that the teeth are still in good shape, or the threading is still in good shape. The other thing is that the spring is tight to the gear. But once this gets discolored like this, it's really easy for this to slip. So for the extra couple of bucks, we're gonna do that. Now before I install this, I will put a little bit of grease There's your corresponding wheel for your oil pump. So I'll put a dab of grease in there and then install this. The other thing, while you're off, make sure your needle bearing, which is still in good shape, get some grease when you put it back on here, okay? So this is somewhere that it just gets some random grease occasionally from what weeps in around the clutch drum and the drive gear. So put a nice coat of grease on there. And I think we should be good to go. I'll get a new spring for this, clean out all the crud. Somewhere underneath all that is, well, an oil pump. You can kind of see the outline of it. I'll get this all tidied up and back together. And if anything else pops up, I'll bring you back. If not, y'all have a great day. This still is a quick video, so I'll walk you through on putting all this back together. I don't have my tripod with me, so you just have to stand here. So, you know, this is the steel grease, but realistically, you know, you can just use any kind of axle grease. Just make sure that slides nice and easy. Then you got a dust shield. Now see, here's the easy way to know. So you've got the shape of the backside of the Spider on there as a witness mark. But if you look closely, if I rub some of this off, this says top on it. And it doesn't mean that kind of top, it means this side up. I guess that's how it translates into English. So you want to hook that on there. Whoops, boy, this is hard to do one-handed. I feel for the mechanics that do these YouTube channels and do all this one-handed. The dexterity is incredible. So that will have to go in there. I'm gonna need both hands. I can't do this. Maybe I can. But anyway, and I'm looking at this through my phone. All right, so that's the idea right there. Once you get that in, I'm going to put the little retaining screw in there. Be careful, this is short threaded, so you can only be a little bit more than snug before it strips. We'll replace the dust cover on this. The next thing that goes on is your clutch, and just be mindful, this is a left-hand thread, so counterclockwise to tighten this up. You'll want to bump this with a small impact just to make sure it's on there real good. You don't have to hammer it on there. It will tighten as it runs, but you need a little something of a bump just to make sure that the clutch is on there good and snug. Take this off so I can get everything else buttoned up. Okay, I think that's about it. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll go ahead and check and make sure, you know, as always, whenever you're working on your saw like this, make sure all your fasteners are tight, check all your connections. And some of this stuff you can catch before something's truly worn out or broken or missing. So just for once in a while when you got a decent day, give your saw that good once over and a good sharpening. Check everything. So that's all there is to it. Talk to you later. Okay, today on this old saw, part 12. So I went to go hook back up the spring, and this knee right here is moved way too far back. So, I mean, it should be about right there. So I think that's why the brake band went back behind the clutch drum and broke. So I've got a new brake handle. I don't have, this one's specific to the 441. That's what we're working on today. Hopefully this knee is okay. I got a new brake handle. We're gonna try and slide that on there. I got a feeling that this slot may be worn out. I'm hoping that's the case. Let's see what this yields in just a second. Okay, I was gonna line up the old versus the new. The slot itself wasn't too worn out, but more like the inside was, and that was allowing it to go farther than it should. So it's actuating, and I think we're good to go. I think that's the last thing I'm gonna do on this old hunk of shit. Okay, so there's too much slop in this. Husky calls it a knee, but this piece right here, so when I try and put the clutch drum on, it gets bound up on the spring, and if I can get that jammed in there when I engage and disengage the brake, the clutch drum won't spin freely. So we'll just wear this brake out. That should just drop right down on top of this, and it won't. So I've got one of these on order. We'll have to put this on hold, but that's something to look at. This is typically, you know, this is a wear part that lasts a long time, but you know, this saw's got some serious age on it, and you know, it's another part of that today on this old saw to keep it going. You know, replacement costs are keeping me busy. So with all that being said, y'all have a good day, and I'm done.